Cynthia Barnett. I first met Cynthia Barnett at her Gehring's book signing and reading for Mirage, Florida and the Vanishing Water of the Eastern U.S. I sat there listening to her and I had a complete epiphany. And soon after, she and I formed the Florida's Eden program called One Region, One Book, designed specifically to place Mirage into the hands of as many people as possible and stimulate conversations about living sustainably with our water. It really worked. And over the next few months, several months, I came to know and cherish Cynthia and her entire family. It was a no-brainer when Mirage won the Florida Book Award, even as Cynthia was researching and producing Blue Revolution, Unmaking America's Water Crisis. Since then, Blue Revolution has become a nationally acclaimed read and guided us to form necessary steps toward a Florida water ethic. These days, Cynthia is immersed in yet another book about water. This one explores the natural history of rain. Please help me welcome Cynthia Barnett.
Thank you, Annie, for that lovely introduction and for all you do for the nature and people of North Florida, and also for your boundless support of environmental books in the age of apps. I hope you will all indulge me of my recognizing a few people in the audience. My son Will, who is 11, and here I promise, completely at his own choosing. My first editor, Jackie Levine, dear family Mindy Blum and Claude Owens, and I cannot speak at Santa Fe without a nod to Steve Lodel. Steve was not only my first journalism professor, but taught my one course in public speaking. So if you like my reading tonight, Steve deserves some credit. If I bomb, it will be all Steve's fault. I have two confessions. One, environmental activism for me is an ill-fitting suit. Two, I am not particularly fond of nature writing, the la-di-da sort that extols the beauty of a spring without saying what's happening beneath. I had to work on water in my own way. Once I became successful enough as a journalist to write about anything I chose to write about water. Telling a water story that had been hidden from the public, as I did in my first book, Mirage, let me make a difference for water in my own way. Traveling around the world for my second book, Blue Revolution, to show Americans how easy it would be to live differently, let me make a difference for water in my own way. The more I understand how water really does vanish from aquifers, from springs, from rivers, and even from the sky, the more I see that I must now turn to climate. The way we live is changing the climate, much faster than most people realize. The most immediate changes all involve water, altered rainfall, more extreme flooding, more severe drought. My way this time is to write a book about rain. I hope that if I can dig deeply enough and write compellingly enough, more people will come to understand what's happening to water and figure out how to make a difference in their own way. This is what water asks of us. Jack Davis does it as a historian, Lola Haskins as a poet, Margaret Tolbert as a painter. And to all of you, even if you are here for the extra credit, even if you have failed 2 classes or more, rest assured you are finding your skills and passions. I hope you will use them to make a difference for water in your own way. With that, I'll read you a bit from my introduction to rain. This section follows a story about Thomas Jefferson and rain. At our nation's founding, Jefferson was already convinced that human activities were changing the climate. And by the way, the first paragraph will give Jack Davis a science lesson that it was rain that filled the oceans. Rain is the source of all Earth's water, from the primordial storms that created the ocean some 4 billion years ago to the hydrologic cycle that replenishes rivers and aquifers day after day. It is also the wellspring of all Earth's life. As the American nature writer John Burroughs enthused in a paean that soaked 9 pages of Scribner's magazine in 1878, rain is the most beneficent of all the operations of nature. More immediately than sunlight even, it means life and growth. Sunshine abounds everywhere, Burroughs wrote, but only where the rain or dew follows is there life. Life and something more. Humans have a native appreciation for rain grounded in its provenance for civilization and agriculture. Jefferson constantly watched the Big Sky Theater at Monticello, where cerulean thunder clouds built along the Blue Ridge as if matched by artist's palette. He fretted over too many cloudless days in the way that all farmers do. He found relief when storms returned, carrying moisture from the yet mysterious West. His letters often closed with a word on rain or the lack. Not enough rain to lay the dust, he would lament, or he'd gratefully share news of a fine rain, a divine rain, plentiful showers. Sometimes after writing fellow statesman James Madison, who measured rain in a tin cup nailed to the front gate at Montpelier, Jefferson would hold off sealing the letter until morning so he could report the overnight showers at Monticello. The earth has had enough, Jefferson concluded after one such update, but more is wanting for the springs and streams. Wanting is apropos, a hint at the something more, for rain is also a love story, a certain unquenchable exaltation, as William Carlos Williams once described his famous epigram, the red wheelbarrow glazed with rain water. And for all of human history, it has fallen with the mystery and enchantment, the longing and heartbreak that a good love story entails. Humans have always worshipped rain, from the Mesoamerican cave paintings exalting rain deities to the penchant of modern Christian governors to pray up a storm. Rain and its 2 most wondrous creations, clouds and rainbows, have inspired writers, painters, and poets for thousands of years. Homer's Iliad is thick with clouds, as is much of the ancients' poetry and prose. Curiously, their paintings are usually bereft of weather or even sky. Artists really began to look up during the Renaissance. But it was the French Impressionists who mastered the atmosphere so compellingly that today's meteorology instructors use their paintings to teach cloud identification. Our rain cliches traced to the soggy literary landscapes of Ireland and England. Jonathan Swift is credited with the earliest published version of Raining Cats and Dogs. In 1738, though an English dramatist named Richard Brome had his dialogue raining dogs and polecats a century before. Some suggest that during bleak times, heavy rains might well have sent the corpses of drowned dogs and cats down streets and gutters, plausible when one reads Swift's gruesome mock pastoral description of a city shower. The modern poets wrote unforgettably of rain what Conrad Aiken called the syllables of water, while many 20th century authors awakened in its absence. Mary Austin, Willa Cather, and Wallace Stegner all found muse in thirsting lands. True, the sun and the wind inspire, but rain has the edge. As rainfall is the most beneficent of nature's work, so it has the strongest pull. Who, after all, dreams of being kissed in the sun or dancing in the dust? We wish for rain especially when we've gone without. Rain is bliss when topsoil has turned to dust, when local springs have vanished, when frogs have gone silent, when fish have rotted to eye socket on dry lake, when corn has blackened on the stalk, when fat cattle have shriveled to bone, when 500 million Texas trees have perished, when bushfires have incinerated Australia, when unthinkable famine has spread in North Africa. And then, fast as 100-mile-per-hour winds, a celebration of rain can turn to terror and the deepest grief. Consider the stormy evening of January 31st, 1953 in the Netherlands. Dutch families in the coastal provinces of Zeeland and South Holland had gone to sleep in a festive mood. It was their Princess Beatrix's 15th birthday. Rain, wind, and waves, drum rolling into the jetties, had amplified spirits, like the excitement that often precedes a hurricane in America. By 2 a.m., the apocalyptic North Sea storm was pushing floodwaters over dikes and wooden barriers like boiling milk. Long after it was over, when all the lost souls were finally counted, they numbered 1,835. Half a century later, another biblical flood, Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans, took 1,836. The North Sea storm and Hurricane Katrina, like most every flood disaster in history, spun off another eternal human response. People viewed the flooding like some sneak attack of nature and vowed to fight back. Like every culture before or since, they convinced themselves that humans could gain some sort of control over nature, over rain. Ancient Rome had its rain god Jupiter Pluvius. During medieval times, when wet weather led to crop failures, starvation, cannibalism, and other horrors, both religious and secular courts intensified witch hunts, trials, and executions, convinced their primarily poor female targets were conjuring storms. Aztec and other Mesoamerican people made child sacrifices to supplicate rain. A small victim's tears were a sure sign of the deity's forthcoming bestowal. America's natives hopped and spun in rain dances, harmless compared with the gambols of U.S. scientists during frontier settlement. Private and government researchers alike were convinced that cutting and burning tracts of forest or setting enormous fires could create rain. These and other foolhardy schemes helped lure thousands of naive homesteaders to try to farm some of the driest land in the new nation. Science and quackery coupled in that era to birth the field of cloud seeding, a chemical milking of clouds. Today, multi-million-dollar seeding projects continue in the American West and some other parts of the world, the largest efforts in China, where government scientists say they coax showers in arid regions by firing silver iodide rockets into the sky. If cloud seeding were a sound solution, of course, China's Yangtze River would not be shriveling, along with nearby lakes, reservoirs, crops, and livelihoods. The United States would not be withering in the most widespread drought since the Dust Bowl, more than half the nation missing its regular rain. Yet we carry the presumption of Jupiter Pluvius, muscled enough to erect colossal storm barriers to push rainwaters away in times of too much, clever enough to design fathomless reservoirs to store rain in times of too little. And as it turns out, humanity has managed to alter the rain, only not in the way that anyone intended. Thank you.